Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Bold and beautiful Doc Grace had a hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd get away with her $1 million lies. Not only that Liam had cancer, but that she had miraculously cured it. But the fit hit the Sean last week with Finn figuring out what she'd done and her being forced at last to confess why she did it. It was to keep her daughters safe from the debtors of her ex-husbandry. Remember, the Buckingham sisters? Grace must now pay the price. And sadly for her, Bill Spencer is the culprit. Anyway you slice it, this is not going to be pretty for Grace. Bill is not a man known for being kind. He could sue her until she's forgotten. He could have her license to practice medicine revoked for deceit. He could even have her escorted up the river. Cassandra Creech tells Soaps.com, I don't think she truly thought about what his reaction would be should the truth come out. Of course, she hoped it wouldn't, she said. Grace's only chance of survival at this point is if it becomes public that Luna, Lee's double murderer granddaughter, has survived. Then, although unlikely, Grace might say, see, humans make errors. When you obtain Luna's parole, even you did so, Bill. Grace also had a better justification. See further. What do you think? Should Bill retaliate against Grace or show Grace some compassion for her precarious situation? Grace appears to be persona non grata for some time. You think? Creech laughs. She is the cat. And now there will be a game of cat and mouse. They're after her, Bill, Liam, and the Forrester family. So I'm looking forward to the restoration of her character. Hey, Grace isn't the first person in the story to do something awful and count down the days until we all forget about it. The others can be viewed here. Grace Buckingham was frozen in the dim light of her cramped office at University Hospital, her mind replaying Finn's voice over and over, like a crewy looped recording. You faked Liam's diagnosis, Grace. The muted hum of the overhead fluorescent bulbs was a mockery of the violent storm building, both outside and inside her chest. You lied about cancer, and you let everyone believe you cured him. When Finn dug too deeply too quickly, his sharp medical instincts sniffed out the impossibility. In the scan results, the miraculous recovery that defied every shred of oncological data and the paperwork that didn't line up, no matter how many layers of false documentation she'd slipped into the system, there had been nowhere left to run. Fighting the dizzying wave of nausea that was sweeping through her, she pressed her fingers to the bridge of her nose. It wasn't supposed to come in order to position herself as a savior and secure the $1 million that Bill Spencer, frantic and broken over his son's fate, would pay without hesitation if it meant giving Liam a second chance at life. She had spilled everything, her voice cracking like an old vinyl record. She admitted that she had created the diagnosis out of thin air, rigged the CT images, planted the reports that showed late-stage malignancy, and then treated him with a fabricated, but it wasn't greed. At least not in the base sense. Finn thought it was survival for herself, for her daughters Paris and Zoe, because the ghost of her ex-husband, Dr. Ray Buckingham, was more than just a man from the past. He was also a trail of blood and IUs that ran across continents. He was a storm of creditors and dangerous men who had threatened not only her but also her children. They wanted Ree to pay back debts he had accrued over the course of his years of gambling and bad deals, debts that were now targeting her. Grace had panicked and fought her way through every avenue to reach the One thing she knew could open Bill's
vault.
his son's health. The threats had become more specific and darker. We know where Paris works. We know what hospital Zoe is at. She hadn't counted on Finn's medical tenacity, nor the fact that Finn would feel a personal betrayal, not just as a doctor, but as Liam's friend and Steffi's husband, someone who had been pulled into the Spencer family's panic and grief. And now here she was, her confession fresh in Finn's mind.
And
Even worse, Finn had said it, the words that still rang in her ears cold and
certain.
I'm telling Bill. She was haunted by the image of Bill Spencer's face when he heard that Liam had cancer. For the first time, his hardened billionaire armor had cracked right
away.
His eyes were wet. His voice was unsteady, and all that relentless business ruthlessness had vanished in the wake of a father's terror.
Now she
would see that face again, but this time there would be no grief to soften it, and there would be no helplessness to blunt it. She would see the eyes of a man who had been played, humiliated, and robbed of not only his dignity, but also his money. He was a man for whom retribution was more than just a metaphor. Before she looked, she knew it would be Finn or worse, Bill. When her phone vibrated against the desk, when she looked down, the screen showed Bill Spencer. The breath caught in her throat, her stomach dropping into some endless chasm as she answered, forcing her voice to be steady, a doctor's
voice.
But his tone cut through her like
glass. We need to talk now, my
workplace. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned pale, and her mind raced through possible outcomes as she drove to Spencer Publications. She thought she might be able to argue her case, explain Reese's debts, and portray herself not as a con artist but as a mother protecting her daughters. But she also knew that Bill wasn't the kind of man who would listen to sob stories after his own family had been dragged into the fire. By the time she stepped into his glass-walled office, the city sprawled out beneath the massive windows like an indifferent witness. Bill was standing behind his desk, a predator's stillness in his stance, his eyes locked on her with a focus that made her want to shrink into the carpet. He told her to sit, and she did so, lowering herself to the leather seat with her knees touching the edge. He didn't waste time asking questions, because he already knew everything Finn had told him, and he had told him everything in such great detail. He spoke slowly, each word carrying the weight of controlled fury. You let me think my son was dying. You let me watch Liam say goodbye to his daughter. But you took my money, my peace, and my nights of sleep. And for what? So you could pay off some thug who wants Reese's head? Grace tried to speak, tried to weave in the truth about the threats, about the danger. But he cut her off, his voice rising, the mask slipping. I don't give a damn about your excuses. You and my family played God. And now you think you can leave because you had a reason. Grace, no.
No.
Because she could see that this wasn't going to be a lawsuit or a public shaming. This was Bill Spencer, and his idea of justice was personal. Her heart pounded so hard that she could feel it in her temples. Her breath was shallow as a result. His hands were braced against number that she knew deep in her bones was one of Reese's old creditors calling to remind her that the danger hadn't gone anywhere. She realized she was
trapped between two predators, each
ready to devour her for different reasons, and the real terror wasn't that Bill would destroy her. Rather, it was that he might not be the worst of the
two.
She swallowed hard because she was aware that there was no good ending here. Grace's next 24 hours were a blur of growing dread. With each tick of the clock leading her toward a fate she wasn't prepared for, but couldn't avoid. That evening, she sat in the small kitchen of her condo, with the blinds drawn, clutching a cup of coffee she had not consumed, and her eyes were fixed on the phone in front of her. She was compelled to call Zoe and Paris.
But how could she?
She had always been her daughter's moral center in their chaotic
Family. So, how could she tell them that?
she had crossed a line that would forever change them? Zoe's sharp tone turned to disgust. Paris's wide, trusting eyes going cold felt almost as unbearable as facing Bill Spencer himself. But Bill had been clear.
He
would tell them if she didn't.
and Bill
Would tell it in a public, vengeful, and earth-shattering manner. When a sudden, deliberate knock at the door made her stomach clench, she finally picked up the phone with her thumb on Paris's
name.
For a moment, she wondered if it was Bill himself. But when she opened the door, Finn was standing there, his jaw set, his doctor's badge still clipped to his coat. He entered without waiting for an invitation and said, "We need to talk." He was carrying a substantial envelope. She noticed. "What is it?" she asked cautiously, anticipating the response. He dropped it on the table, the weight of it making a dull thud. "Evidence, documentation. Everything you did, including the altered charts, fake scans, and billing
Codes.
It must be submitted to the hospital board by me," he continued, his voice becoming more strained. "I came here first because I'm giving you the opportunity to resign before you get fired." Grace sank into a chair, her fingers curling against the tabletop.
Do
"You think I don't know what I've done? Finn, do you think I haven't played it over in my head 1,000 times?"
her
Voice faltered. "I did this to protect my daughters. You know what Reese is?
you
Know what he left us with?" Finn's expression softened slightly, but it didn't change the outcome. "I can relate to fear. I understand wanting to protect your family, but you crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. You did more than just steal Bill's money. You also made the father believe that his son was
dying.
You made Liam say goodbye to his daughter Grace. That's not just unethical. That is inhumane." The word made her tremble. Cruel. It had never felt like that in her mind. But hearing it out loud, she couldn't deny how it must have felt to them. By the time Finn left, promising to give her until the morning to make her decision, Grace felt as though the walls were closing in.
She
Finally dialed Paris's number, her hand shaking so badly she almost dropped the
phone.
Paris answered cheerfully, but her tone shifted instantly when she heard her mother's voice. "Mom, what's the matter?" Grace tried to speak, but her throat became tangled with the words. "Paris, I have something to tell you, and it's bad. Both Liam Spencer and I are the focus of it." Grace told the truth in slurred, fragmented sentences, and Paris listened in stunned silence. Paris finally said, "Mom, please tell me you're lying." After a prolonged period of silence on the other end, "Please tell me you didn't do this." When Grace couldn't, the only sound was Paris's sharp inhale followed by a clipped, "I can't believe you.
I
Have to go." The line went dead.
telling
Zoe was worse than telling Paris.
Zoe's
Temper flared instantly, her voice laced with outrage. "Do you know what you have done to us? This will be with me at every job interview and every interaction with a patient. You've destroyed our name." Zoe laughed bitterly as Grace tried to explain that she had
done it to protect them.
support us.
We
Will never be able to escape Reese's gaze because of you. You are not any better than him. The resulting damage had begun by morning. Bill Spencer, true to his word, had already set things in motion. Doctor's $1 million cancer scam exposed. Liam Spencer, not ill.
Family speaks out, was the headline that
Appeared on the Spencer Publications website. The headline was bold and brutal. Grace was aware that Finn had to be one of the anonymous hospital sources who confirmed the falsified records, and the article was brutal in its description of the con. Her name became a social media trend with hashtags like #CancerCon and #BuckinghamBetrayal, which caused a feeding frenzy in the comment section. The environment was icy cold when Grace entered the hospital. That morning, colleagues she'd known for years avoided eye contact. As soon as she got close, the two nurses stopped talking. At the reception desk, the clerk handed her a sealed envelope from the board of directors, an official notice of suspension pending investigation. It was finished.
her
Career was effectively dead. Bill was
not finished.
He called her that afternoon, his tone deceptively calm. This is just the beginning, he said. You're going to give me back every
Cent.
and you're going to stand in front of the press and admit what you
Did.
Grace was holding the phone so tightly that her knuckles became white. She made the admission in a low voice.
I
Don't have the money anymore. Ice was Bill's response. Then you'd better find
a way.
get your home sold. Sell your
Car.
I'm not bothered. You stole from
Me.
my son was taken from you. And I'm going to ensure that you are constantly reminded of that until I made whole.
The
Financial pressure was crushing, but the psychological toll was worse. Her apartment was surrounded by paparazzi. Paris did not return her calls. A single text from Zoe read, "Don't contact me again." Patients she'd treated for years posted angry testimonials online about how they'd lost faith in her. In addition, Ray's creditors were still out there, perhaps encouraged by her public disgrace and aware of her vulnerability. Grace thought about possible escapes as she sat by herself in the pitch black that night. To leave town, change her name. Do you want to start from scratch somewhere else?
but
Bill's reach was long, and her daughter's rejection cut too deep to just disappear. The worst part was knowing she had triggered all of this herself. She had walked into the fire